All right. So I'm here with my good friend Philip, and also my friend Shreyas behind the camera. Shout out Shreyas. So I think that the best way to describe life is that it's just a series of choices that all kind of add up to create this experience that we have, right? Would you agree with that?
Sure.
And sometimes we make a choice, and that choice can affect something that happens to us later on, but we don't know that that's going to happen until, well, we get to the future, right? So I'm going to try and demonstrate that. So you can have either the red deck or the blue deck, totally up to you. The blue deck, of course. Okay, so just hold on to this. We'll get back to it later. I wouldn't have recommended that, but I guess I'm not going to touch it now. It's okay. So I'll use the red deck. And I'm going to hand you the Joker. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spread this pack out. And I want you to slide the Joker somewhere in the middle. Now remember, and do it face up so we can see it. And even leave it sticking out just a little bit so we can see exactly where you put it. Totally up to you. Now, are you happy with that?
I'm content.
You're content? Do you want to change your mind?
No.
Okay. So bear in mind that if you had changed your mind, you would have put it in between two completely different cards, yes?
Mm-hmm.
And the outcome will be completely different. So we'll go ahead and take a look at what those cards are. It's a king and an ace. So it's not really important what exactly the cards are, but we are going to use the values. So if we think of the king as 13 and the ace is 1 and we add those together, we get 14. Now, if you put it between two other cards, a king and a 2, that would be 15. You know, it's a different number completely, right? Can you take out that deck of cards that you have? In your sweatshirt. In your shirt. And take them out. And turn them face up on the table. And can you count down, what is it, 14? So just count out 14.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Which leaves us on the ace of clubs, which again seems insignificant, right? When you think about it. In fact, it means almost nothing. But like I said, you made a choice earlier on in this trick, and sometimes we make choices that affect us later on in life, but we don't realize that we've made the right choice or the wrong choice until much later, correct? But I think that you've made the right choice here today. In fact, I think you've made the only choice that you could have possibly made. I haven't...
Am I in the Matrix here?
Maybe. Can we turn that over for me? That's the only one in the whole day. It's red. What are you salting them for?
I'm salty.
I'm salty.
I'm upset.
Why? What's so upsetting about them? Nothing else in the box, right?
That was exciting.
So I couldn't have touched it, right? Well...
Hey, what's up guys, it's DK Magician here, and welcome back to another OPC Magic tutorial. Today we're going to be taking a look at the 1415 stack. Now just like any other stack, this does require a pretty intense setup, but if you're using it as an opener or as part of a larger routine, I do think it can be incredibly useful and incredibly fooling. The best part is the routine I'm going to teach you requires absolutely no sleight of hand, so even if you've never picked up a deck of cards before, you can do this trick. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the 1415 stack. The 1415 stack was described in a number of different publications throughout the early 20th century. The first one of note is A.C.P. Medrington's A Dozen of Magic, which was published in 1917. However, Medrington stack used short cards in order to guarantee a force of the number 14. Personally, I first discovered the stack in Anneman's Mental Mysteries, which was published in 1929. But the routine that I perform more closely resembles A Marvelous Prediction, which was published in 1928 by Walter Gibson. So now that we've learned a little bit about the history of the 1415 stack, let's take a look at how we can set it up. Now, one thing you'll notice about this stack right away is that it is actually a 50-card stack, meaning that 2 of the cards in the deck are going to be left out, more specifically 2 of the aces. So I'm going to go ahead and put the stack on screen in full right now, so feel free to pause the video, take a look at it, and set your deck up. Now you'll notice there are no suits attached to these cards, and that's because the suits aren't really important in this scenario. Essentially what we're doing is stacking the deck so that every pair of cards adds up to either 14 or 15. And this is a cyclical stack, which means the deck can be cut as many times as you want, and you'll still be able to retain the stack itself. Unfortunately, there isn't an easy way to get into this stack in a way that looks convincing. The reason I say convincing is because if you take a deck in perfect new deck order, give it one Pharaoh shuffle, and take out 2 of the aces, you'll actually be in the stack. The problem is, of course, that, well, the cards are separated into red and black. So no one looking through that deck is going to think that it's mixed. My advice is to simply take the deck, give it that one Pharaoh shuffle while it's in new deck order, take out the 2 aces that are ruining the stack, and then spread the deck out and just swap cards around on either side so they're going in the correct positions, but so that it's not red on one side and black on the other. Disperse them so it looks random and so that the deck looks shuffled. And then once you're in that stack, we can get into actually learning the routine that I do with it. In a moment, I'm going to walk you through the performance that I did at the very beginning of this video, but before I do that, I'm going to explain the setup as well as why I like to do this effect in particular. To start, you're going to need 2 decks with different back designs. You're going to take one deck and you're going to put it into the 14-15 stack, and you're going to take one of the aces that you have left over and place it in the other deck at the 15th position. You're also going to want to make sure to remove the duplicate card from the other deck so there isn't 2 ace of clubs or ace of hearts or whatever ace you end up using. The main reason that I really like doing this version of the effect is because it utilizes one of the aces that doesn't get used in the stack. It has a justification for it not being in the deck, just in case a spectator wants to get nitpicky and check later on. Alright, so this was just a quick performance of the effect that I happened to do for my friend Philip while we were at lunch, and shout out to my friend Shreyas for filming it. Now, you can see that I'm not really quite sure what the pattern should be for the effect. In fact, I'm still working it out now. I haven't come up with a solid routine for it yet. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's important to create your own pattern. I definitely do not want you to copy what I did here in this video because, quite frankly, I don't think it was as good as it could be. So, come up with your own pattern, figure out your own story for the effect itself. So I start here by offering him a choice of either of the 2 decks. He picks the blue one. His favorite color is blue. I kind of knew he was going to pick that one, so I made sure the blue deck was the deck that would be the deck for the reveal. But this is just a simple equivoque. If they say the blue deck, well, you can hold on to that one. If they say the red deck, perfect, that's the one we'll use. So I have the Joker in the deck, and I'm going to have him put it inside the deck anywhere he wants. Now, the reason I have it in the middle instead of just on top so I can easily get to it is to kind of spread through the cards and create the idea that they're mixed inside of his head. Okay. Now, of course, he really can put the card anywhere he wants in the deck because the 14-15 stack dictates that any 2 cards, any pair in the entire deck is going to add to 14 or 15. So you can see that I spread the 2 sides apart and leave them in 2 piles, and then I flip over the 2 cards surrounding him. Now, he got a king and an ace, and that happens to add up to 14. It doesn't really matter if it adds up to 14 or 15. We'll get to that later. Now, I did try and do a little bit of a convincer here where I showed the 2 top cards of these piles. Now, normally they wouldn't add to 14 or 15 because, well, they'd be one on top of the deck and one from the middle of the deck. Chances are it's going to add up to some other number. This time I happened to get unlucky, so it did kind of reveal the method a bit, but hopefully it won't happen to you if you perform it. So then I have him take out the deck, place it face up on the table, and count down 14 cards. Now, here's where we use a bit of language. I asked him to count down 14. I don't say go to the 14th card because that implies that the 14th card should be his selection. Obviously, I know the odd colored card is in the 15th position. So if it's 14, I say count down 14 cards, and then whatever card, we're left with is, the one that we stop at, that's going to be our selection. In this case, it was the ace of clubs. But if it's 15, you can say count down to the 15th card. And at this point, the effect is done. However you want to do the reveal is up to you. I think it's important to have the spectator have as much control over this pack as possible. You want them to do the turning over. You want them to do the counting. And you'll see that I spread out the deck here before he turns over the card to really solidify that it came from a blue deck. He can see all the cards laid out in front of him. So then when he turns it over, he kind of makes the connection in his head without me having to say anything. You can see as soon as he looks at it, and in fact, I gesture a little too quickly here and I say, all the cards are blue. I probably didn't need to say that. You can see in his face, he recognizes how impossible it is that it was a red card from a blue deck. Of course, he's poured the salt on it at this point. He's throwing the cards at me. This is the kind of reaction that you want. I specifically chose Philip because Philip doesn't dislike Magic. He just doesn't like not understanding the Magic. And it made for a really great performance. And so, yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed it. And that's pretty much all you really need to know about this particular version of the effect. Put the card in the 15th position, do the equivoque force of which deck you use, have them stick the card in the middle. Again, any two cards that are next to each other are going to add up to 14 or 15. It's virtually self-working, and it's incredibly hard-hitting. So it doesn't require a lot of effort from you, but the impact is huge. So now that we've taken a look at my performance of my version of the 14-15 stack, let's talk about a couple other variations that you should know about. In Animan's Mental Mysteries, he describes using the 14-15 stack in the context of the Premier book test. You have a book and a deck of cards in stack, and you hand both these out to the spectator. The spectator pulls out a pair of cards, which is obviously going to add to 14 or 15. They then go to the page that they're thinking of and think of the first word on that page. Now, obviously, you don't even need to know what page they're thinking of because in all books, the even numbers on the left side and the odd numbers on the right. So just by which direction they're looking at when they're looking at the book, you can tell whether they selected 14 or 15. And all you have to do is memorize the first word on either of those pages, and you've got yourself a pretty solid book test. Now, personally, I wouldn't perform this effect on stage, but I would perform it in my home. And I might not even do it as a book test, I'd probably do it as a prediction. In the scenario I'm imagining, I have a book on the coffee table and a deck of cards is next to it, and inside that book is a bookmark between the 14th and 15th page. Someone comes in, maybe they ask what I'm reading. I say, oh, I just started reading this book. I haven't gotten very far, but let me see if I can show you a kind of a magic trick with it. And obviously, because you're a magician, you've got decks of cards sitting around all the time. It's not weird that you have one sitting on the coffee table. You pull out the cards, you give them a false shuffle, you have them pick out a pair of cards, add the numbers up, say, you know what, that's kind of crazy. They open up the book, and of course, the bookmark is in between the 14th and 15th page. Or you could do it as a book test. Say, you know, I've read this book a bunch of times. I've practically memorized it. In fact, let me prove it to you. Have them select a pair, 14th or 15th page, you have the words memorized, and you can tell them exactly what word they're thinking of. So that's just one variation that you can do using the 14-15 stack. I know I mentioned a few others in the crediting section, so I'll make sure that those are in the description down below in case you want to go check them out. So that is the tutorial for the 14-15 stack. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it, and I hope that you're able to incorporate it into some of your routines. If you like this video, go ahead and leave a like down below as well as a comment. And while you're down there, go ahead and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell so you get notifications every single time we post. I know it's been a lot of my face here recently, but I do have inside word that there should be a couple cardistry tutorials coming out next month. That's right, Caitlin, I'm talking directly to you now. I've said it out loud. It's going out to the public, so if you don't do it, everybody knows about it. Pressure's on. If you want to stay up to date on all things OPC, make sure that you're following us over on Instagram at organic_playing_cards, and go ahead and join our Discord while you're over there. If you want to follow me on YouTube or Instagram, you can find me at DK Magician. Well, that's pretty much all I have for you guys. So as always, I'm DK Magician. Spread the love and peace out.